Yes, we are back on the RS6 in today's video, guys. I thought, going from the last video, because I got the Golf GTI to do as well, I thought I'll carry on with the RS6 just because I really want to know what's wrong with it, so I'm itching to find out as well. And also, it's on the ramp, stuck pretty much. So I thought, let's just crack on the RS6 and get diagnosing. Now, in the last video, we found a lot of oil, probably, I'm not 100% sure how much, but I'm gonna go between 1 and 2 litres in total in the intercooler pipes. So obviously, big problem. If you haven't seen that video, click in the top right-hand corner, go watch that video, you'll understand what we're up to and understand why in today's video we will be diagnosing, hopefully, the reason that has happened. Now in today's video, guys, I'm going to try and approach this methodically and try and diagnose the issue with the car in the best way I can, in the most effective way I can as well. So I obviously at the minute kind of suspect that the turbos may have failed, which is why obviously smoking oil in the intercooler. However, they are the hardest thing to replace and the hardest thing to check. So there are numerous reasons why there could be oil in the intercooler, and there are also numerous reasons why the oil could be leaking from the turbocharger into the intercooler. It doesn't necessarily mean that the turbos have gone. Now, I don't know anything about this engine. I've never worked on one. When I was at Audi, these cars are very rare as it is, and yeah, when I was at Audi for the 3-year period, these cars were already sort of 4 or 5 years old, so they've already kind of left the main dealer circuit, and they just didn't, if we did have one on, I never ended up servicing it or working on it. So never actually worked on one of these engines before. I have just tried to read as much as I can, common problems, try to read some self-study guides on how the systems work, why there could be a possible reason for oil in the intercooler. So I have done some research, read some guides, and I found there's numerous reasons why there could be oil. Now, the first reason could be a simple thing, like the engine oil could be overfilled. Now, I have actually now read on the correct procedure on how to check the engine oil level, and I think I actually did it right. So I'll put a little picture up now. Now, it does say to check the oil level, to get the car up to temperature, leave it running for a couple of minutes, switch it off, leave it 2 minutes, and then check the oil level. Now, I think some of you guys in the comments said that the engine had to be running when you check the level. It seems that is not the case. So I think when I did the engine oil level, that was correct. Now, this engine here is a dry sump system. So they use this system mainly for cars that are maybe on track and they're being thrown left to right and braking hard. It just eliminates the possibility of engine not maybe getting to one place. If you're going hard around a corner and the engine oil moves over to one side, it eliminates the issue of potentially a bearing not getting oil for a split second. So the dry sump system on these is a pressurized system, so therefore there's always oil pressurized in every location. So now because of that, if you overfill the system, there can be too much pressure, which can force oil out into places that you don't want it, and that can then find its way down into the intercooler. So that is one of the reasons why you could have oil in the intercooler. I just want to pause the video there, guys, to thank today's sponsor for the video, which is YFood. Now, for those of you that watch my channel regularly, you know that I've been using YFood for well over a year now. They are perfect for people like me. I'm constantly on the go, either driving or in the workshop, don't stop, don't have time for lunch, breakfast or dinner really. But this is where YFood is great because it is a complete meal replacement. It is not to be confused with a diet drink. You can have this for either breakfast, lunch, you can replace any meal throughout the day. Now, the reason they're so good is because they contain 26 different vitamins and minerals. They are high in fiber, high in protein, they're gluten-free, they are lacto-free. And not only that, they can come in a bottle or they can come in a powder form where you just mix it with water. It's up to you. Now, these contain around 400 to 500 calories, depending whether you have the powdered version or the drinks. They do keep you full for between 3 and 5 hours. Now, I'm 100 kilos and they do genuinely keep me full for a good 3 hours. Now, if you haven't used YFood before, guys, I recommend the starter kit. So if you just click the link in my description, takes you over to their website, use my discount code, which is salvage10, to get an extra 10% off, guys. And let me know in the comments how you get on. So a massive thanks to YFood for sponsoring today's video. Now, because when I checked the oil level in the first video, it was slightly under, and I topped it up. I now watched, I believe, correctly to the right level. I'm going to rule out the overfilling of the oil system as a reason why it's leaking oil into the intercooler. Now, the next reason can be the Pcv system, the crankcase breather system, which is a complex system, has 5 or 6 like one-way return valves, and any one of them can get blocked and cause excess crankcase pressure, which can force engine oil out through the turbo into the intercooler. Now, this is probably the most likely reason why I have oil in the intercooler, purely just because it's quite rare to have both turbos fail at the same time, which is what it gives us the impression because of the oil in each intercooler hose. Now, the crankcase breather system works, I think, like this. Now, I've just read a self-study program and done some research over the last sort of day about this engine. So if I'm wrong, I apologize in advance, but this is how I've understood the system works. Now, before I go any further and try and explain how the crankcase ventilation system works, I am just going to remove the air boxes, just because there are a couple of pipes under them that I believe may also be the cause. So I want to actually understand it myself as well, so I can see them visibly. So I'm going to remove the air boxes, and then hopefully that will give me a better understanding of how to explain it. Now, we have a crankcase breathing system on this car, and the job of that is to basically relieve the excess pressure in the engine, which is caused from combustion. So basically it's combustion that leaks past the piston rings, goes into the crankcasing, and that pressure is then alleviated by the crankcase pressure system and then actually recycled back into the engine. Now, the way it works is we have over here, we have our main crankcase breather. It's actually part of the oil tank. It sits on the top. And the reason it sits on top of the oil tank is because this is a dry sump system. So the oil is, there is no sump. There's no 4 litres, 5 litres of oil in the sump. Majority of the time it actually sits in this tank over the left-hand side here. And what happens is there's an oil pump. I think there's more than one. I'm not 100% sure how that works. I haven't looked into that system. But basically, it is pumped around the engine. It is pressurized. So when the oil is returned to the tank, it goes through a process where the oil that's gone around the engine has come back. It's picked up some combustion gases. They are filtered up into the top of the oil separator up here. There will be oil in the combustion gases and the vapor, so it is removed as much as possible through quite a big process inside here, and then it is filtered down into a secondary, or then when it's gone through the fine oil separator through here, it is then fed back into the combustion chamber and reburnt. Right, so the combustion gases from the right hand side cylinder head, they come up through this tube here. They run along here. There's also another tube that comes from the inner V where it's joined, and the gases both run along here into the top of the main crankcase breather. They then go through the primary oil separator, and they come back through this little tube into the secondary or the fine oil separator, and once they've gone through that, they then get fed back into the inlet manifold and into the combustion chamber. The gases from this left-hand cylinder head do not go through the main crankcase breather. They go through this Pcv valve here, then go through the fine oil separator and back into the intake manifold. Now, on a turbocharged engine, the intake manifold here can be under vacuum or it can be under pressure depending on the stage of the turbochargers. So when you're idling or at part throttle and there's no boost, the intake manifold will actually have will draw a vacuum. When your turbochargers are at full boost, then it will have a charge pressure. And that means that the combustion gases that are fed back through into the inlet have to go through 2 different ports. Now, you've got an outlet port here, look, and this goes down into the right hand side turbocharger, and you've got this central one here that actually goes directly into the inlet manifold, and you've got another one down here under the valve that goes into the left hand side turbocharger. Now, in this pipe there are 3 non-return valves. You've got one here, you've got one just under this pipe here, and you've got one just under the Pcv valve that goes to the other turbocharger. Now these valves have to work in opposition depending on the state of the turbocharger. So when you are at full boost, there is too much pressure in the intake manifold, and therefore you cannot feed the combustion gases back through this valve straight into the intake manifold because there is too much pressure. So they have to get fed down the turbo side into the non-charged side of the turbo, and then they will go down that side and down into the other turbo. Now when you're at idle or part throttle, then the intake manifold has a vacuum, which means that the combustion gases can then go directly into the inlet manifold through this port here. Now the reason that these valves are all important is because if they are blocked, stuck open, stuck shut, they can cause excess crankcase pressure. And the reason that excess crankcase pressure is bad is because on the turbo you have return lines. So you have the oil coming into the turbo, it goes around the turbo and it goes back into the crankcase from the turbo. Now if you've got too much pressure in your crankcasing, the oil coming from the turbo back into it cannot go back into the crankcasing because there's too much pressure, and the pressure is forcing the oil back up into the turbo. So now you've got a problem where you've got oil coming into the turbo that's fed in, it's going round and it can't get back out because the pressure from the crankcase is too high. Now the only way that that oil can go back out, or the easiest way it can go out, is through the turbo seals. So the oil can be forced out of the turbo and into the intercooler, which is why it could be sitting in our intercoolers. So that's why these three non-return valves are quite important. If any of them are blocked, it could cause excess crankcase pressure, which could be the reason we have oil in our intercooler. Now there's another two valves here. We've got a non-return valve here and a non-return valve here. Now these valves go from the airbox into the oil feed, oil return feed for the turbos. Now these are supposed to be one-way valves, and we can actually test these really quickly. I'll just put my mouth over it. And what I can do, and I can suck and blow on them absolutely fine, which means they are not working, so they do need to be replaced. So a quick test on both these one-way valves that go from the airbox to the turbo return. They are both faulty because I can suck and blow on both of them, which obviously is not good. So they both need replacing, but whether they are the cause of my issue is, I really don't know at this stage. They could be, but they may not be. They will be replaced, and obviously once we've checked the other three valves and the Pcv valve as well, obviously we'll repair anything else that seems to be broken, and then we can obviously then just run the car up and monitor it. But the next thing I want to do is check these three valves here. There's 1, 2, 3. I want to try and remove as much of this system as I can, because there does seem to be a bit of oil leaking down here. So if we can see where that's coming from, that'd be good. So I'm going to remove the Pcv valve from here, try and remove these valves and test those valves as well to see if any of those are damaged. Right, so it's a bit of a mess here. Removed the Pcv valve, removed the one-way valve for this side of the turbo, the one-way valve that goes into the inlet manifold, and the one-way valve that goes to the other turbo, and got some interesting developments. So easy way to test one-way valves, just blow and suck on them. So I've got this one here, so if I just blow, so that one's okay. I can't blow on it, but I can suck on it, so therefore the one-way valve is working on that one. And we'll go over to this one, I'll do the same thing. So that one seems to be working better. That one works, but that one just worked better. I don't know why it's a bit weird. So that one's fine as well. But we go over to this one. Here she is. Now, I don't know if, let me just put up against the light. So, if I just put it up against the light, can you see that hole in it? Quite a big hole as well. That hole should not be there. So, yeah, I mean, I didn't have to put it up to the light, look, you can see it. So, yeah, there's a big fat hole in the middle of this one-way valve, look, as you can see. And as a result, can breathe pretty normally through that one. So, one valve definitely malfunction. So we've got one valve here, definitely down. We've got our turbo return pipe, little ones from the airbox. Both of those are buggered as well. And also our pipe that went across the top. Now, I said there was a bit of a DIY bodge that's gone on in the past here, look. And actually, when I removed it, the underside of it, look, is completely split. Now, I don't know if that is a reason why it's like that, but I've just ordered a new pipe as well. Thought if we're going to do it, might as well just do it properly. These get brittle over time anyway, so I've ordered a new pipe. So it'll go from here to here. Yeah, because that's pretty buggered. So I found 3 problems straight away. We've got a pipe that needs replacing, and we've got one valve that goes to the turbo and 2 smaller return valves. Now I've checked the Pcv valve, and if I'm honest, there's no like oil residue around it. It looks clean. I can't see any dirt or oil or sludge in it at all. It all looks fine. So if I'm honest, I don't think that's a problem. And I don't really know how to test it, if I'm honest, if we're completely honest with you. So, I think that's okay, and the fact that it's about 400 quid for that part as well is a reason for the moment I'm going to leave it alone. So, I have actually just ordered the things I've just mentioned that need replacing. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace those first, test the car, and see if our problem persists. Those parts there, that pipe, and those 3 return valves, 400 quid. It's not cheap, this stuff. It is not cheap at all. So guys, yeah, pipes are on order. I also do need a new near side intercooler. So I think I'm going to order that, get one off eBay in the next couple of days, because a new one's like over £1,000. So I'll try and source one of those to get as well. These breather pipes are mostly on back order. I've been told around 10 days, I think it's 10 working days for those to arrive, so it might be a couple of weeks. I mean, there's nothing I can do about it, I just have to wait for them. So that does actually mean that in the next video, guys, we're going to be back on the Golf GTI. And this is why you have more than one project car, because otherwise you get yourself in a pickle. So guys, this is where we're up to now. I hope you've enjoyed the process up to now. It's basically just trying to start from the easiest possible problem and then just work your way through the problems, checking them off one by one until you get to the inevitable, the worst problem being the turbos. Now, obviously the PCV system is probably the easiest thing that could be the issue. So obviously it's the first thing that we've checked. And there are problems with the system. As you can see, there's 3 valves I've had to, well, I'm going to replace, and a pipe. That's just in the PCV system alone, which could be responsible for the oil leaking. So we have to fix those before we can rule out the PCV system anyway. So before we go checking the turbo, we need to make sure everything else is working. So once they're all replaced and repaired, we will run the car up to temperature, we'll take it out for a drive possibly, and see if the problem is resolved. If there's still a lot of oil going into the intercoolers, then obviously we need to look into the next possible problem, which, being realistic, is probably the turbos. But I hope you enjoyed the sort of process behind it and the way of thinking and the diagnosis process. Sorry if it was a little bit long-winded. I felt like I had to kind of go into explanation of why I was checking the system, because there's no point me just saying, yeah, I'm checking this for no reason whatsoever, and it's the problem fixed. There's a bit of a, doesn't really fill you in on why I'm doing it and etc. So I hope you did enjoy the process. I do apologise if anything I've told you is wrong. If it is, please do let me know in the comments, because I do like your guys' feedback. It is much appreciated. So yeah, please do let me know. And also, what did you think of the more in-depth video today? Let me know in the comments. So naturally that brings us to the end of this video. The parts won't be here for a while, so the next video will be on the Golf GTI. The injectors, the Golf R injectors have turned up, so we can crack on with that and hopefully get that out on a road test. So as always guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers guys.